Coconuts are fascinating. The tropical fruit's hard shell, encasing edible and drinkable insides, has allowed it to become a widespread favorite around the world. Each massive coconut tree can grow up to 100 feet tall and can produce dozens of coconuts each harvest season. It's also because of this that they are notorious killers, leading to 10 times as many deaths as shark attacks each year. As a mainstay of tropical diets, especially around the Pacific Ocean, it's no surprise that they manage to spread quickly. Even without human intervention, coconuts are extremely good at spreading from island to island, with their hard shells allowing them to float along ocean currents for at most 100 days, and still being able to germinate once they land on other islands. As trade routes became more prevalent throughout the area, they were able to go far beyond the reaches of their natural borders. This is what brought them to the Portuguese in the 16th century, who thought the round fruit resembled a human face, leading them to give it the name coconut, derived from the Portuguese word coco, meaning head or skull. However, more important to this video is the Sanskrit name for the coconut tree, Kalpa Vrishka, meaning tree which gives all that is necessary for living. This idea that everything you need to survive could come from a coconut would lead to the extreme obsession of a German man who was willing to take his culinary commitments to cult-like heights. It was in the early 20th century that August Engelhardt would start the coconut cult. So grab a coconut, or don't, because I'm not going to force you, as we learn something new. August Engelhardt was born in 1875. Going on to pursue an education in chemistry and physics, he would quickly grow dissatisfied with the sciences, instead finding his interest with the Lebensreform movement that stood against Germany's increasingly industrialist society, alternatively embracing back-to-nature ideals like alternative medicine, raw foods, and the rejection of any potentially mind-altering substances. It's believed he was particularly influenced by a book called Fruit and Bread, a scientific diet. Influenced by Darwinism, the book claimed that since the natural food of apes was uncooked food and grain, that was also the proper food for man. Engelhardt would take it even further. For him, even bread and fruit were tainted. In his mind, the only immaculate and mystical flesh pot was the coconut, with its snowy white meat and translucent water. In 1898, he co-authored a book ridiculously titled A Carefree Future, The New Gospel, glimpse into the depth and distance for the selection of mankind, for the reflection of all, for consideration and stimulation. It was jam-packed with the lifestyle ideals that he followed, and even some poems like Mother Coconut, which begins, "Coconut, noble princess, and benevolent mother of men, likeness of God you are, and divinity in the shape of a plant." He hoped that this might attract like-minded people that would be willing to join him in his quest for coconut-flavored self-actualization. For the most part, however, people simply ridiculed him for his beliefs, especially as he grew out a long beard and wore fewer and fewer clothes in public. Thanks to a large inheritance, he was actually able to pursue his dreams, and he left the ridicule of Germany and moved to the heart of coconut consumption, the South Pacific. Specifically, he purchased 185 acres on Cabacon, a small, sparsely populated island between Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. Many of his possessions he left behind in Germany, hoping to never see them again. What he did bring along with him, though, was his library of 1,200 books. Once he arrived at his new home, he had a small, simple hut built and purchased a coconut plantation. Engelhardt was certain that the bright tropical sun hanging overhead was the life source of the universe, and that in doing away with clothing, he was bringing himself closer to healthy living. His cult began to take shape, a shape which would most definitely be described as round. His belief system revolved around two orbs, the sun and the coconut. It wasn't long before the co-author of the book mentioned earlier joined him on his plantation. The two continued to write together, creating ads that would be published in German newspapers, inviting anyone and everyone to join them on the plantation, and saying that they should have no fear of malaria because the coconut is more effective than quinine. Let's just say the ads didn't receive a sensational response, as many felt no different than before Engelhardt had left the country, but a select few were intrigued by the idea of an idyllic tropical paradise. At least 15 young German men left everything behind to go and join the coconut cult, including a popular Berlin concert pianist. Those who joined the coconut cult looking for an escape from society were met with just that, and more. Engelhardt was going deeper and deeper into his ideology, turning to a nudist lifestyle so that he might be able to better soak in the sun's energy, as well as refusing to eat anything but coconuts. So let's talk about coconuts again, because they can actually be really good for you. They have a good amount of fat and carbs and can lower your blood sugar. However, they lack vitamins A, K, B6, and B12, as well as severely lacking in calcium. Also, 1 cup of coconut meat only contains roughly 3 grams of protein, or roughly 5% of the daily requirement. This means, assuming somewhere around 3 or 4 cups in each coconut, each person would need to eat more than 14 coconuts each day to get enough protein. It seems as though, even with this knowledge, Engelhardt would not be deterred from his goals. The cult was now named Sona Norden, meaning Order of the Sun. Those that chose to follow him would now experience the full lifestyle of August Engelhardt. One of them was Heinrich Eukens, a 24-year-old vegetarian who was enthralled by Engelhardt's lifestyle, enthusiastically joining and going all in on the sun worshipping and coconut adherence. Within weeks, however, he dropped dead, his body unable to survive such a drastic transition. The others carried on anyway. It wasn't long before they too began to suffer tragic ends as well. Some through heat stroke, others through drowning, and of course, malaria. Because as it turns out, the sun and the coconut aren't better for curing it than the medicine designed to cure it. Not to mention that at least one colonist met their end somewhat ironically by being struck by a falling coconut. Those who did not perish from their time on the island fled the cult, leaving the weak, undernourished August alone once again. The German government became well aware of the events that had taken place on the island and began to forbid any youth from joining the cult. Engelhardt himself continued on, certain that his followers died simply because they cheated on their mono-coconut diet, polluting their bodies with impurities and poisons from other food sources. But his health, too, was beginning to fail. Eventually, even he was too weak to refuse modern medical care, and a local doctor was able to nurse him back to health in Papua New Guinea. In turn, Engelhardt escaped back to his island. Then, World War I broke out. The following year, Australian soldiers raided the island and captured the German Engelhardt, but he was soon released because they found him to be so physically and mentally ill that he wasn't even worth keeping as a prisoner. Just a few years later, in 1919, his body succumbed to malnutrition. He died at the age of 44, reportedly weighing only 66 pounds. This was the end of the coconut cult, but not the end of the obsession with the fruit. Decades later, in 1963, a religion was founded in Vietnam, taking inspiration from Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, and Taoism. Its leader, who studied chemistry for a short time, became familiarly obsessed with coconuts. Although some of his followers would continue to consume milk, juice, oil, and leaves, Nguyen himself ate and drank nothing but plain coconuts. The split between North and South Vietnam in the Vietnam War left many willing to seek out religion during the harshness of the conflict. At its height, this new coconut religion had around 4,000 followers, and even prompted its leader to run for president in 1971, though he didn't win. Some historians argue the distinguishing difference between lifestyle and religion, but in 1975, it was labeled a cult by the communist government and was forcibly disbanded. Nguyen, being the leader, was jailed for his role, and the coconut religion died off once again. Coconuts can be good for you, but like with anything, it's always possible to have too much of a good thing. Thank you for watching Learn Something New. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like down below, and if you want to see more, please consider subscribing. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next one.